Yay! So today we have another episode of Becoming Cosmically You podcast, and today we have Izabella. So, Izabella, I don't know whether you want to introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and what you do.
My name is Izabella. I'm an alignment coach, a breathwork facilitator. I teach yoga. There's a lot that falls under my umbrella of tools, but for the most part, what I do is help people come back to their truth, their authenticity, to heal the past and to move forward into a desired, exciting to be living future.
I love that. I love that. And what does that look like for you? Like your path? How was that kind of unfolded for you to be living the desired life for you?
Mm. Well, it's been a journey. It's been about a decade, I think, the last decade in particular, which so beautifully again ties into things like our Saturn return. And
Mm.
anyway, but this last decade has just been very transformational for me. Ever since I was like young, I always knew that I wanted to be working and doing something professionally that I loved.
Mm.
So I was always like there was this value around career and what I do professionally. And I did a pretty good job at that. Like I actually was one of the few people that's lucky that loved their jobs. Like I never worked in a place that I didn't like. I was very, very privileged in that regard. And I worked for it. And so I spent many years working in community organizations, in activist spaces, in organizations that served people on and usually people that were either under or misrepresented in mainstream society. And then I moved into tech and I did some time in that space, which was so much fun and so rewarding. And again, in line with this value that I hold so dear to my heart. But I had a burnout. So I lived through well, at this point, actually, my second burnout. And so that kind of shook me, right? So this was about 8 years ago now. I got shook because I thought that I was living a life that was amazing, and it was, and I'm grateful for what I've lived and for the opportunities that I had, but it was out of alignment with
Mm.
my actual, like my soul's desire, with my dharma, with the way that I'm meant to be living and serving. And I didn't really see that at the time,
Mm.
but my body was starting to show me that. And again, lots of different things kind of happened. So, I mean, fast forward, it's been a big part of me living, and excited to live life is being curious and really kind of following my gut. Like after that burnout, after leaving my life in Canada, I've lived in 4 different countries and like just really allowed myself to explore. And now I just feel very grounded and grateful and just excited by what's in front of me. And I think that's a really good place to be.
Mm. Yeah, that's a beautiful place to be. You mentioned Saturn returning earlier. Do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, yeah. So essentially, if we're looking at our natal chart, so this is a concept that comes from astrology, and specifically the way that I work with it is tropical system. So your Saturn comes back into your chart. So when you're born, your natal chart is a snapshot of where the planets are and what signs they're in and what houses are being activated. This is a whole language in science. And Saturn is in a specific place when you're born. And then roughly about 27 to 32 years, it comes back around and it comes back around. And so we have these what's known as like your Saturn returning to this place in your chart. And this usually impacts a lot of areas that are very foundational for us. So it's like bigger things like mission and our relationship to discipline and like are we actually doing the thing that we're meant to be doing. And it's just it brings about this like a bit of this stirring of, I see it as like a check-in,
Mm.
like Saturn comes back and checks you. It's like, are you on path? Are you on path? Are you sure you're on path? Because we're gonna just like fuck with you for the next couple of years just to check you back into placement, to come back again to like to that. What am I here for? That's my interpretation of a Saturn return. I'm sure there's far more eloquent ways to look at it. But for those of you listening, if I invite you, if you haven't already, to look back in your life and notice what was happening in your life when you were, let's say, about 27 to like 32. And then again, 27 years later. So, maybe like late, like 50s, 60s, like that part of your life. And, it's just as a curiosity exercise.
I'll have to wait for mine. I'm not quite at that age yet, but um, it's fascinating. So, like, how are you supporting people mainly at the moment? Are you seeing a lot of people coming through with missions or focusing on finding their soul alignment? Like, how are things playing out for you right now in your reality?
Yeah, I see a lot of people coming to me with that are burned out, that
Mm,
have dysregulated nervous systems, that are starting to be a bit more aware of like trauma, and maybe like there's some level of awareness. There's a lot of like, I just want to say that we're living in like a really great time for education, right? So there's so many books out there and there's so much ways to access this information. But a lot of folks are dysregulated. Um, and I think that, Saturn return or not Saturn return, like that's a physiological like response of our body that is impacting the way that we're showing up daily, right? And those impacts can show up in so many ways. Like you could just be tired, or you could just be in relationships that really don't serve you. And I think you don't necessarily think about your nervous system as playing a part in that, but it does, plays a huge part of that. And this is the unconscious stuff. So I'm seeing a lot of folks coming in with that state, and most of them aren't aware because it can be quite subtle as well.
mm,
It's a big spectrum of how the body responds. Um, but I truly see a desire to realign, like to live more on purpose,
mm,
to connect with yourself, and to tune out some of like the noise and the expectations and the comparisons, and the like truly the noise of the world around us, because it's busy out here.
mhm,
It's busy, and we're not designed for busy. Our brains don't do good in this.
mhm.
Yeah.
I agree, and I feel like people are starting to assess their decisions and really start to think about what they want to do with their lives. And I feel like that kind of happened a few years ago, the catalyst for that. I feel like people, especially in corporate as well, I spent a lot of time in corporate, and it's a million miles away from what I do now in my mission. But I feel like a lot of people are starting to wake up to the fact that you don't have to go to work every day and get a job in the same way that we've always been programmed to do. There are
Mhm.
other ways now. There are so many more effective ways of building something that serves you and how you serve the world, and it gets to be almost like symbiotic. What's the word? Almost like breathing with the universe. My team is saying, you get to breathe, and everyone gets to breathe in and breathe out together. And I feel like we're kind of moving to this kind of stage where everybody gets to choose, and I find that quite exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And I think that like the shift in consciousness, like what you've just said, like I interpret that as like, yes, we have a shift in collective consciousness.
Mm,
And there's collective trauma that we've all just lived through, which was the lockdowns and the COVID and the breakdown in trust of institutions and organizations. And I think that shook a lot of people.
mm,
Um, and even for me, like as I was watching it play out, I felt like I was watching a soap. Like
mm.
I was just like, really?
Yeah.
This is what you're gonna do? You're gonna put you're gonna close people's bank accounts and like just for protesting and can't like it
Mm,
was just such a shakeup of what is the dominant power and what decisions are they making and how does that actually impact me,
mm,
right? Because depending on your privileges in society, which are made up of a lot of different things, you might have not been impacted by some of this stuff in a while, or you are impacted by it directly and you might be aware of it or not.
mm,
So absolutely, I think that there's a lot more people that are just seeking something like inside of themselves and then trying to find community around that that's out of this narrative that we've been fed about. Do your 9 to 5, go to work, get your mortgage, do this, do that, feed into the system, be a part of the system, celebrate the system. Like I think we're breaking out of that quite a bit right now.
yeah, definitely breaking down the walls. And my team want me you to speak a little bit about burnout and what that really feels like, because I see this a lot in the coaching industry, especially amongst females. I mean, we really only work mainly with women, but I see a lot of it, kind of a lot of very heavy, hustling, masculine energy coming through these beautiful, divine, feminine souls. Yet they're very much in their masculine, very much in their wounded masculine, I should say, rather than their masculine. And they all they know is the hustle,
Mm,
and like you can feel the burnout, you can feel their proving energy, you can feel their woundedness. Yeah, they don't
yeah,
see it because they're in the community of other people that are exactly the same,
yeah,
people who are focused mainly on the external, the material. And I'm not saying any of this is necessarily bad, because there's no such thing as good and bad, but it's ultimately how it feels and what it leads into. And I can see it so clearly, so many people being sucked into this burning pit of burnout, and
yeah,
not many people can see it. And I'm like, how can you not see that? Doing 14, I remember I saw a post in one of the groups that I'm in, and this person had put on, she did like 14 back-to-back sales calls in a day. And I was like, wow. And there were so many people congratulating her, like, oh my God, you're a legend. This is amazing. And I thought, oh
yeah,
gosh, we have so
yeah.
much work to do in this industry to to
Mm,
change what success is, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that again, burnout is a symptom of a culture that is working in a way that is out of alignment for the good of the humans, for the good of like the organisms that are in it. That's how I truly see burnout. And again, we're talking about this more. It's actually been recognized by the World Health Organization as specifically um, a, an illness. Maybe that's not the classification, but as an experience that's induced by work, right? So there's definitely something here about working. And so I think that overall, like there's this like, coaching industry, yes, but overall we celebrate a certain type of achievement, right? And we base our identity off of that.
Mm,
So I think especially for those people that aren't aware that they are burning out or they might be experiencing those symptoms, but they just brush it off or they medicate it really quickly, or they go and get wasted on the weekend to have some fun, and then they're even more dysregulated when they come back to work. I've been there. I'm not judging. I've absolutely been there. Um, it's paying attention really to what your body is saying
mm,
and being aware of like what you're believing that your worth is based upon.
mm,
Because a lot of work related stuff, business work, is related, in my opinion, around deeper wounding, around worthiness
mm,
and safety.
mm,
So there needs to be some work done at like that level,
mm,
right? There needs to be some healing done at that level. And alongside that level, we need to get, again, the system regulated, right? If you're firing constantly, there's cortisol being pumped through your body, you're going to be experiencing symptoms of that. Like that's just, it's how we work. And again, whether or not you're aware of it, because like what an example, right? If I think of myself doing 14 calls of any sort in one day, of any sort, my mom included, any calls, and specifically business related or client calls, I just can't. Like my whole body was like, that's not like, that's not the trade-off of, and but again, like it seems like we're both lucky in that we are able to really align how our work goes, and for those that are in corporate, or for those that are stuck in that, like, let's just, because when I hear that your main priority is income, right? Which is important. Absolutely, it's important. But again, it's like, at what cost? Are you just reproducing something that maybe even left corporate to do? You know what I mean? It's like, it's the patterns right behind it. And again, I really truly believe that it's related to feeling safe, and it's related to feeling worthy, because external validation is a powerful carrot that dangles, and I see it, and I've been in it, and it's an easy one to fall prey to.
I think actually it's even worse than a carrot. I think it's actually a really powerful societal drug that people need. And I think, I love Facebook. I mean, Facebook went down last night, didn't it? People absolutely lost their shit over it completely. It was quite funny. For me, I was like, well, the calendar's booked out till mid-May, so maybe I'll take a couple of months off of social media. That was my final thought, and that made me quite happy. But it really kind of highlights one of those issues with validation, right? Everybody's looking to be validated through likes and engagement and comments and clients and income and success and all these things. But what if you could just stand today and say, I am enough, I have enough, and anything else is just a blessing? Like, I think that one thing alone would shift the whole world into such a more powerful position to be in.
And again, we live in a society that conditions the opposite. Right? We're living in a society that's based on external validation and comparison and consumption, and buy that thing so you can look that way, so that you can look pretty enough, and like, and make sure you get that watch when you're going to that business meeting, because you like, there's so much that we teach that's, you're not enough. Especially if you don't have money, especially if you can't buy into this club, you're not enough. And of course that's bullshit, and we know that's bullshit. But it's a tricky curtain to really, because again, it comes back to safety. It comes back to safety. It comes back to our innate need to belong, to be in, because once upon a time, if we didn't, if the tribe kicked us out, you're dead. And our system is registering that, right? And our system's responding to the conditioning, to the beliefs, to what we're following. So it's, it is a drug. It is a drug. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
I think you can move through it there. I've definitely moved through, needing that validation. I always say to people, my social media, I turn up and I say some shit, and then if people agree with me and follow along with me, great. But if they don't, then I won't lose any sleep over it. But there are so many people who absolutely need that validation. And we think that it's people who haven't got any money, who are low self-esteem. But actually, I've met some really super successful people and worked with some really super successful people who are millionaires and beyond, who have these issues completely magnified because they use the success as a mask and a plaster. And the thing is, when you are super successful, no one questions you because you've got money. No one,
Mm-hmm.
no one calls you out on your own bullshit because you can hide behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Especially again, inner circle.
Mm,
And yes, and I have those clients as well. And I will say that sometimes it is turned up louder
yeah,
because that mechanism is creating their desired outcome, at least their external desired outcome, which is they are in, right? Like they are wealthy, they have a beautiful home, they have multiple properties, they have nice cars, they get to have nice dinners, like they get to like socialize with like other, lovely, affluent people.
mm,
And again, there's nothing wrong with any of that. Like, yes. And how do you feel?
yeah,
How do you feel? Because if all of that is coming at the cost of you being exhausted, agitated, actually having breakdowns in relationships, being less patient, being not a present father or mother or friend or partner, like like at what cost do we do this?
mm,
And there's ways to do this also that don't involve burnout or breaking down. And sometimes we have to learn, right? Like baptism through fire. Like I again, I dance with burnout. I still do, but I catch it quicker. I
yeah,
catch it the moment. Like I'm very devoted now to being like, let's just do a bed day.
yeah. I love that.
Let's just do a bed day today. And it's okay. I'm not going to lose my home. My clients are fine. Like,
Mm,
let's do a bed day or let's do a beach day or like, let's surf this morning or, whatever it is that brings me joy and takes care.
I love that. I refer to those tasks as happy tasks. They're things
Mm.
that you do just for you to make yourself feel fulfilled, whole, loved, connected, because I feel like I love the point you said about how does it feel to you, because everything that we do in this 3D reality is all about our feelings and what we are seeing and what we are hearing. And if you've got all these fancy things and still you're not feeling fulfilled, then well, it wasn't the fancy things you needed.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's the part I think that needs serious light on it, and also reminding these people that it's absolutely okay, because a lot of people go through this, right? They get the thing and then they realize it wasn't the thing they needed, it was something else connected to that
Yeah.
thing, you know
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know because I've lived it and like I've lived it on so many different ways. Like on the most like simple way, like I just remember being like a young girl, like a young woman, maybe 18 years old, and like not feeling so good about myself and worshiping women like Jessica Alba. Like, oh well, Jessica Alba has these jeans. Oh my God, maybe I'll buy those jeans and I'll feel like I look like Jessica Alba. And
mm,
here's like an 18-year-old spending $300 on a pair of jeans,
mm,
right? It's like, oh, to like bigger things, adult, to being like, well, I'm going to push through. I'm going to like reach that next level of leadership in my company because this is the impact I want to make. And I need to make this impact because I'm an impactful person. I don't just
mm,
work at an organization. I create change and I push things forward.
mm,
And it was like the same thing, actually the same thing, but coming out in such a different way. And
mm,
at work, it's so much easier to fall into these mechanisms, especially when you're getting shit done.
mm. And you're getting validation and you're getting those pay rises as well.
Yes, the
Everyone's telling
validation's
you,
coming from everywhere.
yeah, yeah. It's a
Yeah.
trap. It's a trap. And that's
Yeah.
such a beautiful message, really. My team are just saying, like, it's so beautiful because sometimes you have to be willing to press pause on your life right now and just say, everything I have, is it enough? Am I enough? Or what needs to shift? What needs to change? And it's often taking that self responsibility, isn't it? It's one of the hardest steps, but it's
Absolutely.
because you've got to call yourself on your own bullshit as well. I do that a lot, as well as my clients. They will tell you they call it tough love. I think one of my clients referred to it as recently. But if there's a divine truth that's going to trigger someone or get straight to the point, I will just
Yes.
say it. because, you know, that's what I'm paid to do. And I think it needs more of that in the world, not pussyfooting around people and just saying kind things for the sake of kind things. We need to just say, look, listen, are you okay? Like, are you happy with this life? Like, no one really ever asks you if you're happy, do they? They ask you if you've got like money, or that they tell you look good, or that whatever, have you got a nice house or a nice car? They don't ever say, are you happy?
Yeah. And I think that, again, it's like we're mirrors for each other. And as coaches, like, you're right, it's like it's our responsibility as ethical service providers to call it when we see it. And that's an art. That's an art. And every person's different, at least in my experience, because there's some clients that I can, like, you know, and other times it's like, again, this is like, this moment could change so much. This moment could change so much. This realization that of this pattern, or that moment of like sinking into that enoughness,
Mm,
could actually create such a ripple effect in someone's life.
mm,
And I will say that without personal responsibility
mm,
as like a foundational element of that,
mm,
it's, you know, you kind of, it I don't know, it has to be the foundation,
mm,
because you just don't know what that can almost do to somebody. Does that
mm,
make sense? I feel like,
mm.
and
Yes.
if they're ready to hear it.
Mm,
But again, people that are like in coaching spaces and personal development spaces, like, my assumption is that you're ready for personal growth and transformation.
mm.
And if there's any, you know, sort of ideas of that always being a gentle, fun loving, light experience, I'm going to burst your bubble right there, because like a lot of growth happens through very uncomfortable moments,
Mm,
you know, existential or like otherwise. Like, it's just like, it is a journey. It's a journey.
mm. Yeah, it's definitely a journey. Um, where can people find you, Izabella, if they want to stalk your energy and see what you have to offer the world?
Best place to get in touch is through Instagram. So it's just my name, Izabella Soko. And I will have a website soon. It's under construction. It'll be the same thing, IzabellaSoko.com. Yeah.
Beautiful. Before we go, my team want me to just share what it's like working with you. Like, what are you working with people on at the moment, and what can they expect when they work with you?
So working with me is deep. Yes, we look at strategy and very kind of tangible shifts and goals, but there's an element of healing that happens when we're moving towards that. And life just presents it. So when we work together, I am your guide on a journey of transformation. And I mean that, every single word of that, because that is what happens. I see life just create these situations in my clients' lives where they're being asked to step into something bigger,
Mm,
something more aligned. And that can look like, you know, conversations with your partner or your family, or that can look like really looking at your business and being like, is this what I want? Is this like, it's alignment, right? And alignment happens on so many different levels. And a lot of the work I do is somatic. I work a lot with breath. I work a lot with the body. But of course, we're going to be looking at those thoughts and those beliefs. But the foundation of my work is that your nervous system moves into more regulated space, and we just open up capacity for you to actually move forward
mm,
towards what you desire.
mm. I love that. Such important work using the body. The human body is so powerful. People forget that we are
Incredible.
sitting in one of the most technical, powerful pieces of kit that you could actually own.
Yeah. 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 And we don't get a manual for it.
Mm.
You
Well,
gotta
apart from our
figure out
feelings
your
and our
balance.
warning lights and our symptoms and our aches
Mm,
and all the things that our body says, hey, look, listen to me. You need to take notice.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's been beautiful. Thank you so much for being here with us, Isabella. What we'll do is we'll make sure that when your podcast episode is out, that we'll share your links to whatever you want, to your Instagram, to your website if it's ready. I've been on a journey with my website as well, so I understand where you are with that. And everything that anyone would need to get in contact with you.
Right.
Are there any final messages that you want to share with anybody?
Yes, I would like to invite everyone to just notice how you're breathing right now. And if you can just keep awareness of how your breath is moving in and out of your body, that is the most powerful anchors that you can have for yourself.
Mm.
And just doing your best to breathe in and out through the nose, slowly, deeply, as often as you can.
That's lovely. Such a simple yet deep tool that we have.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that. Thank you, Isabella. I'll stop recording now and thank our readers and listeners and watchers, and we'll have a little chat.
Sounds good.
Thank you.